chosen one, you didn't just survive, you disrupted everything they thought was unshakable. As a chosen one, your presence exposed hidden truths and broke false systems. What they built on illusion couldn't stand once you stepped into your calling. Many couldn't handle the light you carry, so they chose to run instead. This is your confirmation. Your impact is real, and your purpose is unstoppable. From the very beginning, there was something different about you that never quite aligned with the patterns, expectations, and structures people tried to place around you. While others seemed comfortable following routines and blending into what was considered normal, you felt an inner resistance, a quiet but persistent knowing that you were not designed to live confined within those limits. It wasn't rebellion for the sake of rebellion, it was a deeper spiritual awareness guiding you away from systems that could not hold your true identity. Even when you tried to fit in, something within you would not allow it for long. You may have questioned yourself, wondering why things never felt right, why doors closed, or why you stood apart even when you didn't intend to. What you didn't realize at the time is that this separation was not rejection, it was protection and preparation. God was keeping you from settling into spaces that would have suppressed your purpose. The system around you, whether social, emotional, or even spiritual, in appearance was built on patterns that reward conformity, not authenticity. But your calling requires authenticity at the highest level. You carry a truth that cannot be watered down, shaped, or controlled to fit expectations. And because of that, you were never meant to operate within structures that demand silence, compromise, or limitation. There were moments when this path felt lonely, confusing, even frustrating. Watching others move forward easily in environments that resisted you may have made you question your worth or your direction. But what looked like delay was actually divine redirection. You were being refined, strengthened, and aligned with something far greater than temporary acceptance. Every time you were pushed out, overlooked, or misunderstood, it was a sign that you were outgrowing spaces that could no longer contain who you were becoming. Breaking away from the system doesn't always look dramatic on the outside. Sometimes it's an internal shifter decision to stop seeking validation, to stop shrinking your voice, and to finally trust what God has placed within you. When that shift happens, everything changes. You begin to see clearly, think differently, and move with a confidence that doesn't rely on approval. And that is what disrupts the system the most, because it cannot control someone who knows who they are and who they belong to. You were never meant to fit into a world that thrives on limitation when you were created to walk in purpose, truth, and spiritual authority. Your difference is not a flaw, it is the very evidence of your calling. And the moment you fully embrace that, you stop trying to belong to the system and start realizing that you were sent to rise above it. There comes a moment in your journey when simply being who you are begins to uncover things that were never meant to be seen. You didn't set out to expose anyone or anything, yet your presence alone started revealing inconsistencies, hidden motives, and truths that others worked hard to keep buried. As a chosen one, you carry a light that naturally brings clarity, and that clarity makes deception uncomfortable. People who were used to operating behind masks suddenly felt seen, and situations built on illusion began to weaken the moment you stepped into them. At first, you may not have understood why your honesty or your perspective made others uneasy. You were simply expressing what felt true to you, speaking from a place of sincerity and spiritual awareness. But what felt natural to you was disruptive to anything built on falsehood. Your words, your energy, even your silence carried a kind of discernment that could not be easily ignored. It was never about judgment, it was about truth. And truth has a way of rising to the surface, especially when someone refuses to participate in what is not real. This ability to see beyond appearances is not something everyone possesses, and that's why it can create tension. While others may overlook certain behaviors or accept things at face value, you sense what lies beneath. You notice what doesn't align, what doesn't feel right, and what doesn't reflect genuine intention. That awareness is a gift, but it also comes with responsibility. It means you can't pretend not to see, and you can't comfortably exist in environments that require you to ignore your intuition. As time went on, you likely noticed patterns, how certain people distanced themselves when you started asking deeper questions. or how situations would shift once you became involved. It wasn't coincidence. Your presence was bringing things into the light. And while truth sets people free, it can also make those who rely on deception feel threatened. Instead of facing what was revealed, many chose to step back, avoid you, or even misunderstand your intentions. But their reaction was never a reflection of something wrong with you. It was a response to the exposure they weren't ready to confront. What's important to understand is that you were not exposing deception to harm others, but to break cycles and create space for authenticity. God placed that discernment within you for a reason. It allows you to navigate wisely, protect your energy, and align yourself with what is real and meaningful. Even when it feels uncomfortable, standing in truth is always more powerful than maintaining illusion. You didn't create the deception, but your presence made it impossible to hide. And that is part of your purpose, to bring light where there was confusion, clarity where there was distortion, and truth where there was silence. There is a strength within you that cannot be explained by logic alone. It's not something you learned from the world, and it's not something that can be taken away by circumstances. It flows from a deeper source, something divine, that guides your steps, sharpens your awareness, and sustains you even when everything around you feels uncertain. As a chosen one, your actions are not just reactions to life. They are aligned with a higher purpose that works through you in ways you may not always fully understand. You might have noticed how, in critical moments, you respond with a clarity and confidence that seems to come out of nowhere. Situations that should have overwhelmed you instead revealed your strength. Decisions that felt too heavy somehow became clear when you trusted your inner guidance. This is not coincidence. It is the result of divine power working within you, directing your path and giving you the ability to move forward even when the way is not obvious. At times, you may have doubted this power, especially when faced with challenges that seemed too big or too complex. You may have questioned whether you were truly capable, whether you were strong enough, or whether you were on the right path. But even in those moments of doubt, something within you kept pushing forward. That persistence, that quiet determination, is evidence of something greater than human effort. It is a connection to a source that does not fail, even when your confidence wavers. This divine flow doesn't always come with ease or comfort. Sometimes it leads you into situations that stretch you, challenge you, and force you to grow in ways you didn't expect. But every challenge carries a purpose. It strengthens your faith, sharpens your discernment, and prepares you for the level you are stepping into. You are not being tested to break, you are being refined to reveal the power that already exists within you. Others may not understand how you move the way you do. They may see the results but not the source. They may wonder how you remain steady under pressure or how you continue to rise despite obstacles. What they don't see is the spiritual alignment behind your actions, the way you are guided, protected, and empowered by something beyond the physical world. This is what sets you apart. You are not operating from fear or limitation, you are moving from a place of purpose and connection. When you begin to fully trust this flow, everything changes. You stop forcing outcomes and start allowing things to unfold. You move with intention rather than pressure, with faith rather than doubt. And in doing so, you tap into a power that is not limited by circumstances or opinions. It is steady, consistent, and always available to you. You were never meant to rely solely on your own strength. The power within you is divine, and it flows through every action you take. Once you recognize that, you stop questioning your ability and start embracing the authority you've been given. There were moments when people stepped back, withdrew their support, or completely distanced themselves from you, and it may have felt like you had done something wrong. You might have replayed situations in your mind, trying to understand what changed or why things suddenly shifted. But the truth is, their reaction was never rooted in your failure, it was rooted in fear. Fear of what they didn't understand, fear of the truth you carried, and fear of the change your presence naturally brings. When you begin to walk in alignment with your purpose, it creates a kind of pressure on everything around you. Not because you are forcing anything, but because truth has a way of challenging what is unstable. People who are comfortable in familiar patterns can feel unsettled when they encounter someone who refuses to stay confined within those limits. Your growth, your awareness, and your authenticity can unintentionally highlight areas where others feel uncertain or unprepared. And instead of facing that discomfort, many choose the easier path to step away. It's important to understand that not everyone is ready to evolve at the same pace. While you are moving forward, shedding old layers and stepping into clarity, others may still be holding on to what feels safe to them. Your presence can act as a mirror, reflecting truths they are not yet willing to confront. That reflection can feel overwhelming, and rather than embracing it, they retreat. This is not a sign that you push them away, it is a sign that they were not ready to meet you where you are. There is also a deeper spiritual element to this. When you carry light and purpose, it disrupts anything built on fear, insecurity, or illusion. People who are not aligned with that energy may feel exposed or challenged simply by being around you. Even if you say nothing, your presence speaks. It reveals, it shifts, and it invites change. But change requires courage, and not everyone is willing to take that step. So instead of growing, they distance themselves from the source of that pressure. You may have felt hurt or confused by their absence, especially if you once shared a close connection. But their departure was not a loss, it was a necessary adjustment. God removes people who cannot walk with you into your next level, not as punishment, but as protection. Holding on to relationships rooted in fear would only slow your progress and dilute your purpose. What feels like rejection is often redirection, guiding you towards spaces and people who align with who you are becoming. Their retreat does not diminish your value or your path. In fact, it confirms that you are moving in a direction that requires strength, clarity, and authenticity. You are not meant to shrink to make others comfortable. You are meant to rise, even if that means walking alone for a season. So don't interpret their distance as your failure. See it for what it truly is, a response to a level of truth and growth they were not ready to face. And keep moving forward, knowing that those who are meant to walk with you will meet you at the level you are rising to. There is something powerful about the way you exist in the world, even when you're not trying to influence anything or anyone. You don't always realize it, but just by being yourself, by thinking the way you think, moving the way you move, and refusing to compromise your truth, you begin to shift the energy around you. It's not something forced or planned. It happens naturally because authenticity carries a frequency that cannot be ignored. And as a chosen one, your authenticity is not ordinary, it's transformative. You may have spent time trying to figure out what exactly you were doing to create change, especially when you noticed that environments would feel different after you entered them. Conversations would shift, perspectives would open, and sometimes even entire dynamics would change. But the truth is, it was never about doing more, it was about being real. In a world where many people wear masks and follow patterns just to fit in, your refusal to pretend becomes a catalyst for something deeper. When you show up as your true self, it gives others permission, whether they realize it or not, to question their own limitations. Some may feel inspired, encouraged to grow and become more honest with themselves. Others may feel uncomfortable because your authenticity challenges the roles they've been playing. Either way, something begins to move. Stagnant energy starts to break, and spaces that once felt rigid begin to open up. That's the kind of impact you carry without even trying. There were likely times when you downplayed this part of yourself, thinking that you needed to adjust or tone things down to be accepted. You might have tried to blend in, to match the energy of those around you, or to avoid standing out too much. But every time you did that, it probably felt unnatural, like you were holding back something important. That's because your power is directly connected to your authenticity. The more you try to suppress it, the more disconnected you feel. And the more you embrace it, the more aligned everything becomes. What makes this even more meaningful is that your influence doesn't rely on status, recognition, or approval. You don't need a title or a platform to create change. Your presence alone is enough. The way you think, the way you speak, and the way you carry yourself all contribute to a quiet but undeniable shift in the atmosphere around you. You are activating something simply by being who you are, and that activation reaches further than you can see. This kind of impact is rare because it comes from a place of truth, not performance. You are not here to imitate what already exists, you are here to introduce something real. And real change always begins with someone who is willing to stand in their truth, even when it's uncomfortable or misunderstood. So don't underestimate the power of your presence. You don't have to force transformation or chase influence. Just continue to be authentic, grounded, and aligned with your purpose. Because in doing that, you are already creating the kind of change that others can feel, even if they can't fully explain it. There is a level of authority within you that doesn't come from titles, positions, or external validation. It isn't something that people can give you, and it's not something they can take away. It comes from a deeper place, your connection to truth, your alignment with purpose, and the inner conviction that guides how you move through life. As a chosen one, this authority is spiritual, and because of that, it cannot be controlled by systems that rely on fear, pressure, or limitation. You may have experienced moments where others tried to define you, limit you, or place expectations on how you should think, speak, or act. They may have attempted to box you into roles that felt smaller than who you truly are. At times, you might have even gone along with it, trying to maintain peace or avoid conflict. But deep down, there was always a resistance, a quiet voice reminding you that you were not meant to be shaped by external control. That voice is your spiritual authority, and it does not submit to anything that goes against your truth. What makes this difficult for others to accept is that they cannot manipulate or predict someone who is led from within. Systems are built on patterns. They function best when people follow rules without question and stay within expected boundaries. But you don't operate that way. You listen, you discern, and you move based on a higher understanding. That unpredictability challenges structures that depend on control, and it can make people uncomfortable when they realize they cannot influence your direction. There may have been situations where you were pressured to compromise, whether it was your values, your beliefs, or your sense of identity. You may have been told to be realistic, to play along, or to just follow the way things are done. But every time you tried to move against your inner knowing, it likely felt wrong. That discomfort was not weakness, it was alignment. It was your spirit refusing to settle for anything less than what is true for you. As you continue to grow, you begin to understand that this authority is not about control over others, it's about mastery over yourself. It's about knowing who you are, standing firm in that truth, and making decisions that reflect your purpose rather than external pressure. And once you reach that level of clarity, no system can truly contain you. You may still exist within structures, but you are no longer defined by them. Others may try to question your path or challenge your choices, especially when they don't understand how you operate. But their opinions do not hold power over your direction. You are guided by something deeper, something that doesn't rely on approval or permission. And that makes you free in a way that many people have never experienced. Spiritual authority cannot be forced, borrowed, or controlled. It is something you embody through alignment, truth, and faith. And once you fully step into it, you realize that no external system has the power to override what God has already placed within you. There is a deeper purpose behind every shift, every disruption, and every moment where things seem to fall apart around you. It wasn't random, and it wasn't without meaning. God was using your presence, your voice, and your journey to shake structures that were never built on truth in the first place. What looked stable on the surface was often rooted in illusion, and your role was to bring a kind of pressure that would reveal what could not stand. You may have walked into environments that appeared solid, relationships, systems, or situations that seemed unbreakable. But over time, things began to change. Hidden cracks started to show, inconsistencies became more visible, and what once felt secure began to lose its foundation. At times, you might have felt responsible, wondering if your presence caused the disruption. But the truth is, you didn't create the weakness, you exposed it. And exposure is the first step toward transformation. God often works through people who are willing to stand in truth, even when it's uncomfortable. Your willingness to be authentic, to question what doesn't align, and to refuse to settle for less created a shift that others could not ignore. It challenged the very foundation of what was around you. Systems built on fear, control, or deception cannot survive in the presence of clarity and truth. So when those systems started to shake, it wasn't destruction for the sake of chaos, it was a necessary process of clearing what was never meant to last. This process isn't always easy to witness. Seeing things fall apart, especially when you were once connected to them, can feel unsettling. You may have experienced moments of doubt, questioning whether things could have been handled differently or whether stability could have been preserved. But what you have to understand is that anything built on a false foundation will eventually collapse. Your presence simply accelerated what was already inevitable. There is also a level of courage required to walk this path. Not everyone is willing to stand firm when things begin to shift. Many prefer to maintain what is familiar, even if it's not genuine. But you were not called to maintain illusions, you were called to walk in truth. And truth doesn't always preserve what exists. Sometimes it replaces it with something stronger, something real, something aligned with purpose. As these foundations were shaken, space was created for something new to emerge, something that reflects honesty, strength, and authenticity. You are part of that process, not as someone who destroys, but as someone who clears the way for what is meant to be, built correctly. Your role is not to carry the weight of what falls apart, but to continue moving forward in alignment with what is true. God used you as a catalyst, not to harm, but to reveal, to shift, and to rebuild on a foundation that cannot be broken. And even if others don't fully understand your role, the impact of what you carried out will continue to unfold in ways that reach far beyond what you can currently see. There is a unique path set before you, one that does not follow the patterns most people are used to, and one that cannot be easily replicated or understood by everyone around you. What you are walking into is not ordinary, and that is why your journey has often felt different, intense, and at times isolating. You were never designed to blend into what is common. You were designed to stand out in purpose, even when the process feels heavy or unfamiliar. The strength you carry has been shaped through experiences that tested your patience, your faith, and your identity. Every challenge, every moment of confusion, and every season of silence was not wasted. It was preparation. You were being refined, not by accident, but by design. God was strengthening you for something that requires stability, clarity, and endurance beyond what most people need in their daily lives. That is why your journey cannot be compared to others. You are being prepared for a different level of responsibility and awareness. There were times when you may have felt overlooked or misunderstood, as if your efforts were not being recognized or your path was not making sense. But what you couldn't see in those moments was the building process happening within you. While external things may have felt still or uncertain, internally you were being shaped into someone stronger, more aware, and more grounded in truth. That inner development is what will eventually define how far you go. What makes your path powerful is not just where you are going, but how you are being led. You are not moving randomly or without direction. There is a higher guidance over your life that continues to align you with the right people, the right opportunities, and the right timing, even when it doesn't feel obvious in the moment. This kind of alignment cannot be forced or rushed. It unfolds step by step, teaching you patience and trust along the way. You may not always feel confident about what lies ahead, but uncertainty does not mean absence of purpose. In fact, it often means you are entering territory that requires faith over sight. And as you continue forward, you begin to realize that your strength was never meant to come from certainty. It was meant to come from trust in the process that is shaping you. There is also a responsibility that comes with your growth. As you rise, you naturally influence the environment around you, whether you intend to or not. Your decisions, your mindset, and your actions carry weight. That is why staying grounded is essential. You are not just moving. For yourself, you are moving in alignment with something greater that extends beyond personal experience. So even when the path feels unclear, continue forward with patience and faith. What is being built within you is preparing you for something meaningful, stable, and lasting. And when the time comes, everything you went through will make sense in a way that confirms you were never lost, you were always being guided.